Town hall community conversation. Varina. So I know we have some guests. I saw some social media posts going around inviting folk to come out tonight. So those of you who are not citizens of Henrico County or residents of Henrico County, welcome to Henrico County, and we're glad that you are here with us this evening. This is the second day when we have Varina District community meetings. We don't have them in one place specifically. So our district is large. The Varina District itself is over half of the landmass of Henrico County. And so yesterday we were at the Henrico Theater at 10 a.m. and then we're here today at 6. Same agenda, same presentations. And once we finish the presentations, then we'll open the floor up for questions and concerns. For those of you who are here and you have questions and concerns, we'll do that at the end of our agenda. And so tonight we're going to focus on hearing from Gabrielle Kinney, who is a floodplain coordinator for Henrico County Public Works. She's going to come and talk about something that will hopefully educate you, particularly those of you who are in Varina, about the floodplain, if you're impacted at all. Then John Zanino, our Recreation and Parks Director, is going to come and talk about some summer programs in the district, and they're just trying to open it up to give you more seating. John Zanino is going to come and talk about summer programs, and anything else he wants to talk about as it relates to recreation and parks. Then Rosemary Deemer is going to come. We are heading toward the conclusion of our Henrico Next comprehensive plan. So we've been working on that for a couple of years. And she's going to let you know where we are in the process and what's next. Then we're going to hear from Gilberto De Leon, who is our Assistant Director for Public Works. We've got a lot of sidewalks, roundabouts, and roadway projects in Varina. And so he's going to update us on those projects. And then the county manager is going to come and talk about the fiscal year 2026-2027 budget. All right. So those are our agenda items that we had designed, that if you got postcards about the meeting a month ago, advertised. And then Varina residents and those of you from the city of Richmond or wherever you came from for the meeting tonight, then you can ask questions about whatever you want to ask after we get through the business of our agenda for the night. So, Gabrielle, if you don't mind, Gabrielle Kinney is coming, our floodplain coordinator, to share some information. And I don't know if you got this right.
Yes, right. Good evening, everybody. So I know I'm just going to fly through because my presentation is all the way at the back. I know many of you are probably not here for a quick 5-minute conversation about flood insurance. However, I hope that you do come away from, here we go. I hope you do come away from this with a little bit of education on it. Yes, oh, the microphone, thank you. Awesome to see the packed house. Can everyone actually hear me okay in the back? Okay, great. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of Henrico County's enrollment in the National Flood Insurance Program and what that means for you as a resident in Henrico County. We'll talk a little bit about flood risk and also how to kind of use the county resources to pull up a flood insurance quote if that's something that you're interested in. So it should be very quick. I'll be up here for 5 minutes. I'll hang out for a little while, so if anybody wants to pull me aside and chat about it further, feel free. Happy to do so. And we have some outreach materials as well that you can take home with you in case you want to come back at the end and do it. So we'll talk a little bit about knowing your flood risk, what are the different types of flood risk in Henrico County, and we'll talk a little bit about the specifics of what that looks like through our resources, flood insurance coverage and what that means for you as a resident, and then of course those resources that will help you pull together that flood insurance quote. So knowing your flood risk in the county, we have a couple of different ways that we define flood risk in Henrico County. One of them, which you may have heard before, is our mapped floodplains or special flood hazard areas. And we have both FEMA maps, so the Federal Emergency Management Agency comes in and maps these for states and communities across America. And so they come in and do kind of a larger scale mapping of our flood risk. And then Henrico County has actually done a special initiative to go in and map watersheds that are smaller where FEMA might have stopped. So we have both these larger FEMA scale floodplains and then our smaller community SFHA. So if you hear us talking about flood risk, you might hear both of those terms interchangeably. They are regulated the same way. The only difference is that you're not required to have flood insurance if you have community SFHA on your parcel. But there is, if you have a federally backed mortgage on your home, you are required through the NFIP to have a flood insurance policy if you're in those floodplains. One of the ways that we talk about this is that those floodplains are defined by the 1% or 100-year flood. What that means is not necessarily a flood that's going to happen once in 100 years. We like to talk about this as if you have a jar of 100 marbles, that 100-year flood is that blue, one blue marble amongst 199 other white marbles. And any given day, week, month of the year, you pluck your hand in, you could pull out that 100-year storm. So you might go months without it, you might get two back to back. It's just a probability of chance. So just to explain that a little bit further. We also have dam break inundation zones in the county, so those are another thing that we map through our GIS system. If you're curious if you're in or near a dam inundation zone, that is something that we have available to you. And then we also have localized drainage and stormwater flooding. So if you might not be in a mapped floodplain, but you do receive pluvial flooding or have other drainage and stormwater concerns in your community, that is also something that we manage through our department. Also, I didn't introduce myself. Hi, everybody. I'm Gabby Kinney, and I'm the floodplain coordinator of Henrico County's floodplain management program. I also have business cards if anybody would like them. So flood insurance coverage, kind of the meat and bones of this presentation. We're talking about this now because we're coming up into the hurricane season. It starts to be the wet season in spring, so you might see flooding in your community, and this is just something to consider ahead of that time of year. The biggest thing to know is that your homeowners and renters insurance does not include a clause for flood insurance. So if there's anything I would ask you to take away from the presentation, is that flood insurance is worthwhile to look into because it's not part of those regular policies. There are flood insurance policies through the NFIP available, so that's something that we're going to walk through. And then there are also private flood insurance companies, of course, but you do have to be kind of careful with private. Sometimes they don't cover everything. They don't do the full contents coverage or full building coverage, so you can also mix and match between the private and NFIP, but that's always something that we're happy to sit down and chat with you about if you have questions. And then one of the cool things about Henrico County is that in addition to our enrollment in the NFIP program, we're also part of what's called the Community Rating System, or CRS. And we essentially get points as a community for going above and beyond and doing kind of extra special ways to keep the community safe from flooding. And as that, we are actually a Class 5 community, which means we get 25% discount for our residents in Henrico County on NFIP policies specifically. So 25% is huge. It's actually the highest ranking in the state of Virginia as any community has. There are several that are enrolled in the NFIP program, but we're really proud of that. So if you're interested or currently have an NFIP policy and don't know whether or not you're getting that discount, that might be something of interest to you to look into. Also know that if a flood event happens, NFIP policies have a 30-day waiting period. So if you are someone who might be interested in flood insurance or you have a history of that impacting your property, just know this is something you might want to do ahead of time. And then finally, with vehicle and transportation, if you have auto insurance, there is also a separate clause for flood insurance of that. So your normal auto policy does not cover any damages that would happen to your car during a flood. Usually that clause is other than collision, so that's something that you can look into as well. So on to how to get a quote. Again, not the most exciting information, but the NFIP and through FEMA, they actually have this new online NFIP flood insurance quoting tool. It takes about 10 minutes, and we're gonna walk through how you can get that information from the county resources. But you go through, it asks you all sorts of information about your parcel, your building, square footage, do you have an enclosed basement, is it living space, what's the value, etc. So you can go, it's super simple. We just wanted to put some quick instructions on here. You can just Google NFIP quote tool and that will come up to you as your first search hit. On top of that, so I mentioned that quote tool actually requires you to look up some information, some that you might not be aware of or some historical data that you might not be aware of. If you Google Henrico property search, we have this wonderful property database that you can go in and actually see the real estate information about your property of everything that you would need to put together an NFIP quote. So again, if you Google Henrico property search, it comes up with this database. You just plug in your address and it will pull up all of that information for you. And then finally, if you want to see what that flood risk actually looks like on a map, you can also get to the real estate website through this process. If you Google Henrico flood map, that's our public-facing GIS viewer. It shows everything from those dam inundation break zones to the 100-year and 500-year floodplains, so you can kind of know a little bit more about where your risk is, how far it's mapped on your parcel or in your community, and you can pull that up all together to kind of create this wonderful kind of comprehensive picture of what you got going on in terms of flooding. If you're interested in any of this, you're not really sure where you stand, you'd like someone to walk you through it, we have this, what we call our Henrico Flood Help Desk. It actually comes straight to me, so I manage this inbox and this phone number. If you want to just give us a call or send us an email with your property information, I'd be happy to help you pull up information related to that flood insurance quote, or help you, go through the process, talk a little bit about what flood risk means for you. And you might have received some of our mailers. If some of you are in the floodplain, you might have received our 10-topic brochure in the mail with the tax assessments that went out. So again, that's all coming out of the same office and some of the stuff that we do. So I'll leave that up there, and then I will have these two resources. One of them talks a little bit more about NFIP flood policy coverage, and then we have copies of our 10-topic brochure. So I'll set those out maybe over there on that counter, so feel free to pick that up, but again, feel free to grab me if you want to chat. That's all I got.
Anyone have any questions for Ms. Kinney before she takes her seat? All right, thank you. All right, next we're going to bring up our Director of Recreation and Parks. Huge Recreation and Parks Department in Henrico County. We got a lot going on in the Varina, Highland Springs, Sandstone areas, and so I'm going to ask Mr. John Zanino to come up and just talk about specifically what's going on in the summer, but also any other park-related things in the district.
Good evening. Let me see if I can get... So thank you, Mr. Nelson. I'm John Zanino. I'm the Director of Recreation and Parks, and I'd like to take a few minutes just to share some of the programs that we have. We have a lot of programs and events this summer. This is our busiest season, as you can imagine, so I'm going to go through a lot of that. If there's information up here that you don't catch, I put out a lot of information on the table out front. It has a listing of all of the programs and events, so don't feel like if you miss it, you can't get it. You can get it out there. So all of this information is on that table. I have some flyers, some brochures on events, and some QR codes that will take you to a full listing. I'll start with saying that all of our programs that I'm going to talk about today are free programs, with the exception of a few things at Henrico Theater like dollar movies, but everything that you see here is free. Some of it does require registration, so if you are interested in any of these programs, you can go to our website, you can click on some QR codes, but we do require some programs where space is limited for you to register for those programs, and then others of them you can show up to, and then all of the events are free and you can just show up to. So this first slide is programs that we have specifically at Dory Recreation Center. So you can see we have a variety of different programs in and out of Dory Recreation Center. We've started to do a significant amount of fitness classes out of Dory. We've been receiving some feedback about that. So there's a full slate of fitness programs that are taking place out of Dory that's not listed up on this slide, but almost a handful of programs every week, fitness related, and then these are some very specific programs that kind of go through a range of different areas and subjects. We have therapeutic programs, some children's programs, some adult and senior programs. So this is just a sampling out at Dory Recreation Center. A little bit closer in the 9 Mile corridor, we have the Springs Recreation Center, and we have a lot of programs out of the Springs. The Springs actually has an art studio. We call it the Studio at the Springs. Those programs do require registration. Again, they're free, but this is a sampling of programs that we have this summer that take place out of that recreation center. And then outdoors. So outdoors, in the summer months, we do lots of programming for kids and individuals of all ages. We've got a lot of fishing programs. So out at Dory Park, you'll see a lot of our fishing programs. We have a free fishing day on Saturday, June 6th. We're also doing kayaking and canoeing in the parks. We have some paddle programs at Dory. We also have some paddle programs at Deep Bottom on 4 Mile Creek. So those are a listing of some of the outdoor programs we have. And then if outdoors is not your thing, we have a whole slate of history programs at a variety of locations in the Varina district. I'll call out the National Donut Day at Clark Palmer House. That is on June 5th from 2 to 4. We also have a really cool program. We've been doing this program for on and off for decades. Actually, when I was at Henrico Theater, we did this program. It's called Reel to Reel, where we show a movie and then we bring a historian in to talk about the historic context of that movie and how accurate did that movie portray what actually happened. So that's a Reel to Reel program at Henrico Theater. And then to kind of close out programming, we couldn't talk about summer programs without talking about summer camps. 2 years ago, we actually expanded our hours for summer camps. So we're now at 8 locations across the county, and you can see up on the screen the one specifically in the Varina district. But we also expanded the length of the day, so we are now a full day. We go 8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday. Unfortunately, all of these sites are already full. I think we might have 1 or 2 spaces left at the Springs, but did want to highlight some of the summer camps that we offer. If you have high schoolers or college age and they're looking for summer employment, we are full this summer, but keep us in mind because we hire about 60 to 70 staff to be counselors, and it's a great first-time job for a lot of those. So I always like to plug our summer employment opportunities. So transitioning into some special events. So we have a couple large events that we're celebrating. Juneteenth is one of those. So on Saturday, June 20th at Dory Park from 4 to 10 p.m. We will have a full lineup of entertainment. We have the Art of Noise closing out the evening, food trucks, 100+ vendors. So a great event. Last year we broke every record. It was the largest event our department has hosted at over 20,000 people. We did get a question yesterday in one of these meetings about cell coverage. I can happy to announce today that we have confirmed we will be bringing out a booster for AT&T to help provide better coverage at the event. So we've actually confirmed that. So I kind of hinted at it on Monday, but confirmed it today. We're working with the cell providers to provide better coverage just for these events because we bring a large concentration in for just a few hours. And then a few weeks later, we will be doing our 4th of July celebration. This year, we're doing something a little bit different. We are celebrating, this nation is celebrating its 250th birthday, or the 250th signing of the Declaration of Independence. And because of that, we are expanding what we are doing with our events. So we're actually going to be doing a 2-day event. We will be kicking it off right here in the Varina district at Dory Park on Friday, July 3rd. We'll be doing an evening concert from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The concert will be headlined by Plunky and Oneness, and then we will be doing a fireworks display at the end of the night. And then on the 4th, we will be doing our traditional event that we've been doing for about 10 years now, where we partner with the Richmond Symphony, and we'll be doing a laser light show, and that will be over in the Brooklyn district at Crump Park. So that's the large events that we're doing. Do want to talk about a couple other things that we're doing this summer. So I've talked to this group before about Deep Bottom Park. We are officially in the design phase, so we've hired a architectural firm to start the design, and at the end of the summer we'll be coming back to the community to do a community event where we can kind of tell you some of the things that we're starting the planning. We still have a couple years before we get our construction money, but I know that has been a question in the past, so I'm excited to announce that we're starting the design part of that, and we'll have some community meetings at the end of the summer to go into more detail. And then finally, just wanted to give you guys an update. This past fall, we launched a new feedback program on how you can provide us feedback, particularly if you're out in our parks. So we have a bunch of signs that look just like that on the screen. So if you're in the park and you see something that, maybe it's a maintenance issue, maybe it's a trash can overflowing, maybe it's something good that you see a staff person do, if you click on that QR code, you can provide us that feedback. We're happy to we'll respond within 24 to 48 hours. Usually we've been able to fix the issue, but we'll provide some type of feedback. If you provide us information, we'll let you know if it's something that's going to take longer, but we'll let you know how that's going. So if you see anything in the park and you think we need to know about it, it's a quick way to get us information, and then we can follow up as needed based on the requested item. And then lastly, I'll just close with everything I just talked about. If you click on this QR code or scan this QR code, this will take you to all of our social media pages, our Facebook, our Instagram, listing of all of our programs and events. So everything I talked about, you can get to electronically. And all of this is stored on our website. So with that, I will open it up for any questions on any of this or anything in the park system. Yes?
Last August 25, you and I met at Taylor Farm.
Yeah.
Discussed shade structure, possibly a program for the future. We had a great meeting, but I feel like none of that came through.
So I can give you an update, and I'll give everyone an update on everything at Taylor Farm. So there's a couple projects that we have in the works. Additional parking. One of the lots is done. One of them is under construction. We did an additional storage building and maintenance areas for trash blinds and things like that. The shade structures, so we're actually moving one of the shade structures that we have installed that's over by the playground over to the skate park, and that will take place when we're adding some additional features. We're going to be adding additional swings. So that's the delayed on the skate side, was that structure is going to be relocated to the skate park side, as we discussed about a year ago. I know we also talked about some programming. We have started to do some skate programs. Yeah.
RBA skate clinic has been amazing, and we would love for it to come.
And part of that was adding light towers, because I know one of those areas is darker, so we've also researched what it will take. It's a little bit more challenging than we thought to just put a light permanently over there. So that's why we did the temporary light towers. But those are all things that are funded in the works. That additional parking should be done with this summer, probably July, August. And the swing set equipment is ordered, and once all that comes in, you'll see another round of work where we move the shade structure, add some swings, including fully accessible swings. So you'll see some work in and around that play stream area. We also did work on the play stream this past spring to kind of redo some of that area. And then if you haven't followed us, a little bit ahead of time, we went ahead and opened our splash pads. So effective yesterday, all of our splash pads are now open before Memorial Day. So these next couple days when it's hot, you want to go to Dory, you want to go to Taylor Farm, or any of the other locations that have splash pads, they're now on. But yeah, thank you for that question.
Anybody else? We have a question over here. We're trying to get the mic too, because there are people watching online, so we're trying to move it around quickly as possible. So question over here, then we'll come back over here. So we see you.
Thank you. Would it be possible to have that community meeting that you're talking about Deep Bottom with Mr. Nelson before the design starts, so the community can have some input before it starts rather than at the end?
So the design, and let me explain exactly what we're designing. We're just meeting with the firm to talk about what was on the existing master plan. So this is not handing the community a final design. This is handing the design firm a existing master plan and having them put updated visuals to that master plan so that we can show, because that master plan went through a public process, so we can show you renderings of what was updated renderings of what was previously done and approved, and that would kick off the process. So by no means are we bringing you a finished product, we're bringing you updated visuals to the existing master plan. I hope that answers.
So you want to know, can we have a community meeting? The answer is yes, we will.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. There are 3 tennis courts out at Dory Park. 2 of the 3 courts really need repair. There are a lot of deep cracks out there. Are there plans to go ahead and repair those because it's very dangerous?
So we're aware of those, and also the courts, pickleball courts at the Springs. The short answer is we are working on it. The Springs is the first priority and is actually scheduled to take place in about a month. And then we would go to Dory next. But we're aware some of our older courts don't have drainage underneath of them. And when you patch the surface without fixing the underneath problem, it doesn't really fix the problem. So the Springs had been a request from about a year ago. That one's in the works, and then Dory would be the next one.
So what time frame are you expecting for Dory?
I don't have a time frame yet on Dory.
Are there going to be vendors at the Juneteenth event? And if so, how do you sign up to be a vendor?
So yes, there are multiple different types of vendors. We have food vendors, and then we also have informational vendors or community vendors. The food vendors, we have a process back in January where anyone who operates a food truck who is interested in any of our events can submit an application, and then we would place them at certain events throughout the year. And then the other vendors, our department goes through and basically takes anyone who's interested. I believe we're probably already full, but I can check on that because we do have limited space, but we have about 100 plus vendors in the vendor field, and then we're probably 15 to 20 food vendors for the event.
All right, any more Rec and Parks before we let John go? All right, thank you, sir. A lot of cool things happening in the district, so we're excited. We're excited about that. So we're going to move. I'm going to ask. Just ask Steve Yard real quickly, one of our deputy county managers, to come forward and to talk about the New Market Heights Trail, which I think is connected to our park system. So excited about that. Give us an update if you don't mind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Reverend Nelson. Again, I'm Steve Yob, Deputy County Manager for Community Operations. And let me set the stage for this because September 29th, 1864, the waning days of the Civil War, we had entrenched veteran Confederate troopers on New Market Road, just south of Route 5, dug in. They'd been there for a while. At the same time, the U.S. troops had their first major engagement with colored troops. And they had had others, but this was going to be the first one where they were used en masse. They came across the river at Deep Bottom. John Zanino just talked about the improvements to Deep Bottom. They walked from Deep Bottom, basically up Deep Bottom Road, crossed Kingsland Road, went across property that the county will soon own, that is now owned by the American Battlefield Trust, and then onto the county's New Market Heights property, 220 acres. So the county has been looking at this and working with our conserved property owners in Varina. That would include the Richmond Battlefield Trust, the Capital Region Land Conservancy, the National Parks Service, and the New Market Heights Memorial Association for the past several years. Reverend Nelson has joined us on a number of occasions for various meetings, but we've plotted out the location of a trail to follow the path of those brave troops. And ladies and gentlemen, there were 16 U.S. Medal of Honor winners at that engagement, and 14 of them were from the U.S. colored troops. It is a battle that was really not recognized very much. There's no significant monuments. There's some tabletops over there you can read about, but we really want to honor those troops and honor this engagement. So we've been working on this for several years. We've got some funding lined up. There's more funding to come, and we really hope to see parts of that trail constructed within the next 12 to 18 months. It is presently under design. I've talked to the community about it a few times. So that's just a brief update. Reverend Nelson, thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, sir. All right. Rosemary, for the past, I want to say the past 4 or 5 years, we've been prepping to get to the moment that we are close to. Every 20-25 years, the county looks at its zoning categories, its land use, and the comprehensive plan that we have been using was the 2026 plan. And so we started several years ago prepping us for 2045, and we entitled the program Henrico Next. We've been doing community engagement. We've had consultants come in. We started this right before COVID. COVID slowed us down. And so we've been working hard over the last 2 years. And so I'm going to ask Rosemary to come forward, give us an update on where we are and a timetable for helping us get to the finish line.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to have to refer to my notes a little bit, so bear with me. As Reverend Nelson said, we started this project back in 2020, 2021. COVID did delay us a little bit, but we are on the move to wrapping it up in the next month or so. So for those of you who are not aware, the Henrico Next is the title of the county's comprehensive plan update, and it serves an important role in determining the future of the county. It is the first phase of the planning cycle that looks 20 years out and answers three critical questions. What is Henrico County today? What is the county's vision for the future? And how will we achieve the future vision? So, as the primary long-range policy document for the development of the county, the comprehensive plan includes goals, objectives, policies, and actions that guide the operations and work priorities of the county, decision-making on development activities, and sets the stage for future public investments that are determined through the annual budgeting process and capital improvement plan. As I said, beginning in January of 2021, we started the process, and we made sure that our public engagement efforts were designed to ensure that every resident that is interested in being involved in the planning process has an opportunity to share their voice and to contribute their ideas and opinions. Several opportunities, I apologize, I forgot. There we go. Sorry. Several opportunities were planned and conducted to encourage the residents and other stakeholders to participate in safe and fun ways, such as our introductory kickoff meeting. We did surveys of the community, as well as a specific recreation and parks survey. We've had numerous community events. We've had listening and suggestion sessions. And then our most recent meeting was this past March here in Varina at the Varina Theater. We have also had a web presence since the beginning of the process so that stakeholders can follow the process via computer or phone. To date, we've engaged approximately 9,000 residents through surveys, another 1,950 people via our community's visioning exercise. 270 folks came to our 2024 listening sessions on our visions and goals. An additional 130 people attended our future land use suggestion sessions. And then through just additional outreach, such as community events, farmers markets, Plant Native Day, Earth Day, we made sure that we spoke to an additional 1,000 people. And then that's in addition to the approximately 7,500 emails that have gone out over this time, letting folks know about our various individual events and then just our efforts. Through the various input sessions, we've identified new issues and opportunities to be addressed in the plan. So using the feedback that we received, we established a few cohesive visions and guides for the county's future land use and infrastructure. We've updated and created new goals and policies to ensure that they reflect both the county-wide and area-specific priorities, and developed implementation strategies to achieve the plan. The framework of the plan contains certain components that are pretty much standard regardless of whose locality you would go and look. So it's organized in a hierarchy, moving from really broad concepts into more far-reaching, specific topical items. So these components will each contain goals that create a linkage between our vision and more specific policies within each of the chapters. So as you can see, the chapters are listed there. We have obviously an introduction. We have a section called Key Planning Influences and Community Vision, where we'll document and discuss a lot of the community input opportunities that we had. There'll be a section on our environment, one on managed and sustainable growth, that will include both a future land use section and a public facilities and services section. Then safe and connected spaces is our other name for the transportation section. We'll have a high quality livable places section that includes recreation and parks, as well as community character. And then of course we'll have our implementation chapter. And then finally, the document will include strategies for each of the chapters aimed at implementing this plan. So we are happy to announce that we are having another round of community engagement, and that has been scheduled for June 2nd and June 4th. June 2nd will be at the Deep Run Recreation Center, and June 4th will be at the Eastern Recreation Center. The meetings are open house style, so you can come anytime between 4:30 and 7:30, whenever is best for you. Staff will be available. We'll have information about all those different topics. Staff will be able to answer your questions, and then there'll be opportunities for you to fill out surveys to let us know what you think of the information that you've heard, if you have any specific comments, and there'll also be an opportunity that can be done online. But in order to make sure we are letting the public know, they just started going out in the mail today. We are mailing to every resident and every business in the county. So it's approximately 209,000 postcards that are going out that are letting people know about these dates and the times. So I hope you check your mail. If not, remember these dates. But everybody will know that they have an opportunity to come to these meetings. So after a review of the comments that we get back, we'll be holding public hearings for the consideration of the plan. It will first go to the Planning Commission, which is an advisory body. So that meeting has already been scheduled for June 11th. It's a Thursday, and we will start either at 5 or 6 o'clock. But you can find the information on our website as well as on the county's website. And we believe that we will have a public hearing in front of the Board of Supervisors on June 23rd. And then the implementation of all the ideas and the strategies, that doesn't happen until after we adopt the plan. So I don't know if I have another slide with, there you go. So if you'd like, the best place to go for information is henriconext, all together, .us. That will take you to the project website. We have started posting chapters. Information can be found there. And then there's also our email. So compplan, not complain, compplan at henrico.gov. Yeah. So if you have comments about anything that you read in the chapters, and you would like to share that, if you see something in future land use that perhaps you want to comment on your property and you're like, well, you know, I don't want it to be agriculture anymore, maybe it should be residential, submit that. So, excuse me. Well, I'm not sure that it's nobody, but anyway, so folks, ma'am, please, if I could just finish my presentation. Thank you. So you can send an email to compplan@henrico.gov, and we will take your comments that way as well. Or if you'd like, you can reach out by calling the planning department's main number at 804-501-4602, and then they will then forward it to one of the comp planners who'd be happy to talk to you about that. But please just keep in mind, January 2nd at Deep Run, and June 4th and June 2nd second is at Deep Run, and the fourth is at the Eastern Recreation Center. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
And while we're doing that, we have two here. I do want to acknowledge, the presence of our planning director, Mr. Joe Emerson is here. So if you have any questions, you can ask him as well if you catch him later. And our Varina District Planning Commissioner, Mr. William Mackey, is here as well. So I saw one over here, somewhere here, and then in the back. So we'll go here. Okay, all right, yes.
Due to the issues with the mail, which I'm sure most of us are aware, they're not reaching us by the time of the meeting. So if you send them out today, it might not be to our house within 2 weeks.
And unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do with the post office. That's why we're trying to give as much notice as we can. They're actually, instead of going to the Sandston Library for distribution, they are being taken to the individual zip codes. So 23229 is my zip code, and that's Tuckahoe. They are not driving them to Sandston. They are driving them to Tuckahoe so that they can be distributed there. So we are trying to do our best to make sure that they are getting there. But unfortunately, the post office can't guarantee us anything more than that.
And postcards, that's not the only way we're advertising it. The county is using their social media sites. We're also going to be going through like the, hopefully the 6, 8, and 12 news, non-traditional news, etc. So we were asked over and over and over again by Varina residents to do the postcards because some of our Varina residents don't do social media, etc. So that's why we've been doing it. Let's go back. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say this is not for the county. This is for the residents of Henrico County. This is an opportunity that many of us have advocated for. I will credit the county has been good about following up with the postcards, thank you. But this is not even 3% of the population of Henrico County that's participating in this. So please share, please campaign to make this happen because this is less than 3% of the population telling the rest of Henrico County what's going to happen. So please, please, please share the word. Thank you.
Again, the last public meetings, June 2nd, Deep Run, 4:30 to 7:30, Eastern Henrico Recreation Center up on Laburnum, 4:30 to 7:30.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for taking my question. So June 2nd is 2 weeks from today, right? Okay, well, last week I tried to look at the future land use plan, which, will determine what all of our properties here will, the plan for them. And it's not up on the website. And Rosemary kindly responded that it'll be up there, in due time when we start to talk about that. I know Chapter 2 is up on the website. Chapter 6 is up, but I honestly, as long as I've been working on it, I can't make heads or tails of how that will be used. So I feel like you're really rushing this timeline because all the information isn't up on the website, and you want us to come and comment in 2 weeks? I think that's really, I don't know about the rest of you all, but that's a pretty short timeline because we don't even know when the other stuff is going to be on the website.
The other chapters will be posted tomorrow morning. The land use, it doesn't matter what number a chapter is, but future land use and transportation
but that's,
and implementation.
2 weeks and knowing that the post office is bad, it just seems like it's a rush, and I don't know why you're rushing. So that's all I have to say.
We have our meetings already scheduled, and just like to let you know, we have found that the longer window of time that we keep things open, the less people comment. They forget, So we get a really big surge at the beginning, but when we go 3 and 4 weeks, it trickles off to almost nothing. And that's why we have found that 2 weeks is kind of a sweet spot for us.
So it'll be up tomorrow. If it's not up tomorrow, call me. I will make sure it's up tomorrow. Come on June 2nd or June 4th. You're locked in. So if you have any questions, just get with us. The Planning Commission will hear it on the 11th. And if the Board of Supervisors is ready to hear it on the 23rd, we will. If not, we'll push it to the next month. So I know you're locked in, but I also know you're advocating for others. So if it's not up, then let me know, and we'll make sure we say something. All right? Any other questions? Comp plan? Yes. And anybody else after this young lady here? All right? And we'll go to Gilberto after this question.
I'm just curious about the timeline in between the community meeting on the 4th and the public hearing on the 11th. If you have any plans on how you're going to address the comments and feedback that you receive in that short window of time.
So staff will compile it, and then they'll get it to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, and we'll be implementing in the pieces that have been suggested if they are not replicable, and if it's something that we already don't think is something that we're going to vote on or approve, it may not make it there. So we'll get the information that is not already been shared, and they'll share it with us. So there's their duty to get us the information as quickly as possible to make sure that we get the information so that we can be prepared to make decisions. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations to us, and so they're the first priority to getting the information as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, Gilberto De Leon is our Assistant Director of Public Works, and we have a lot of sidewalks and roundabouts and streets and all of the things that go with Public Works work here in Varina District, and so he's going to come and give us some updates, and then we'll finish our presentations with the county manager and updates from the fiscal year 2026-27 budget.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. So, as Mr. Nelson said, I'm Gilberto De Leon. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. And I guess we'll hopefully talk about roads and sidewalks. As you can see up there, I have my QR code. That is my email and phone number. If you don't see your project, we have a lot of projects on screen, but if you don't see your particular project or have follow-up questions, be sure to send me an email or give me a call. Also, I do have business cards on me if you guys are old school and want business cards. So let's go ahead and proceed. So essentially, we're going to be divided into 4 areas. Completed projects, projects under construction, projects in development, and then other initiatives. So this is one that's been completed for a minute, but it's a very significant project for the district. Cost of $13.3 million, and the scope is about a mile of widening, drainage, and sidewalk work. And you can see the significant difference that it makes, the before and after pictures on projects like this. Another example is the Creighton Road Improvements Phase 2. This one was about $20 million. Realignment and relocation of Dabbs House intersection, which is right here. Do we have a pointer? We do. Yeah, Dabbs House and Creighton Road. So like I said, quite significant improvement, $20 million on this project. And then this is one example of our quick build roundabouts. Duran Road at 4 Mile Run. We not only contract out projects, but we also have a quick build program where our internal staff and either on call or our own forces go out and build these projects. Saves quite a bit of time and quite a bit of money if we don't have to go out to contract. So this is one of those roundabouts that we were able to get out and build quite quickly and effectively. It was just completed this January. So with that, we'll jump into projects under construction. This one, I believe, is already open, the Meadow Road crossing, the replacement of this horrible-looking box culvert with a three-row box culvert. This just off to the side of this picture. Some minor work and punch list items are left on that one. Cost of $2.2 million in that project. Capitol Trail lighting, I think this one is also up and running, minor punch list items, but essentially the beauty of this project is it's solar. So we're installing solar lights wherever we can. It saves on utility work, utility coordination, saves us working with Dominion, and also saves us a lot of money in terms of utility cost. Great example, cost of about $300,000, and you'll see a lot of solar lighting popping up around the county. Very effective solution for lighting issues. So let's go ahead and talk about projects in design. This is the most amount of projects that I have on this list. Kings Ridge Parkway signal improvements. This one is scheduled to be advertised later this year in the fourth quarter of 26 with a completion date of next year in 27. Cost of around $800,000. It connects Dabb's house. So this is the connection we'll be making on this project right off the side of the picture here, and adding a signal up at Laburnum Avenue in Kings Ridge Parkway. Moving on. Airport Sidewalk Drive. This project will build a continuous sidewalk along the eastern side of Airport Drive from Airport Place to East Washington Street. Advertisement is also expected later this year and completion in 27. We are currently in the right-of-way phase of this project, and that's the stage we are at a number of projects, just acquiring property and coordinating with our property owners to either get easements or property from them. South Laburnum Avenue northbound, this is one of two sister projects that we're going to try to get out together. The northbound is about $2.8 million. Again, later this year should be out to advertisement with completion in 27, along with the southbound of North Laburnum. Both projects are around that $3 million. Sir?
No, just go back to the slide before. Just want to make sure that we understand. So we're doing sidewalk from Williamsburg Road up to White Oak Shopping Park on both sides of the street. So in essence, that's what Gilberto is saying. Gilberto doesn't understand how significant that is, but that is, so that's why I had to come and reiterate that. So
I'm still kind of new to the county, so forgive me if I don't see how important these are to you. But please do give me a call and send me an email and remind me of how important these are to you. But yeah, about $3 million a piece, both sides, and these sidewalks will be completed next year in 27. Messer Road, this one is one that's been on the books for a minute. It's a 12-foot wide asphalt shared use path along Messer Road, and it connects Varina to the Capitol Trail. There's quite a bit of impacts to right-of-way, to the property owner there to the right. So we're working with that property owner to try to get this as soon as possible. Estimated is $2.3 million. So it's quite a significant amount of money for a 12-foot trail. We are now at 60% plans, and we're in design stage, and VDOT is reviewing plans. So let's talk about the Darbytown roundabout. I believe we had a meeting in Darbytown about this project not too long ago. This one is estimated around $14.8 million. It realigns Doran Road to tie into Darbytown across from Henry Ward Boulevard. We're right now in right-of-way acquisition, so again, acquiring properties. It's anticipated to begin later this year. Right-of-way acquisitions are anticipated to begin later this year with utility relocations towards the end of the year. So yeah, hard at work on this one. It just a lot of behind-the-scenes work that's taking place. Okay, so on to other initiatives. We have a number of initiatives that are happening in the background. 9 Mile Road, 9 Mile Road between Beach Avenue and Williamsburg Road is well underway. I mean, safety improvements continue to be the driving force behind this one. This is a multimodal bike and ped project along 9 Mile Road. Moving on, Route 5 between 295 and 895. I believe we also had a public meeting not too long ago, and we are incorporating all of the feedback from you all into our design. We will have one, maybe two more meetings to ensure that we are getting this right. But again, we have very good feedback from the last meeting, and we're doing our best to incorporate the community's needs and comments into this project. So more to come on this one. So let's talk about transit. Stop 7A and B is ongoing with good ridership. The Sandstone Elko link now runs on weekends. Benches and shelters continue to go up across the county as quickly and as efficiently as we can. We had a lot of good feedback yesterday on the importance of these benches where stops are available. And, you know, we continue to pursue grant funding as well, not just county funding, but all kinds of funding to try to get these executed. So our WOA program and safety vests. We recently had a fatality, I think it was May 15th, on a pedestrian that got hit and sadly died. Pay attention to these numbers up here. We continue to have double-digit fatalities in the county. And I think it's the responsibility of all of us to ensure, number one, as pedestrians, that we are ensuring that we are visible, we are wearing our vests. We have plenty of vests around the county, but also as drivers to put down the phones, not be distracted, ensure that we are looking for pedestrians and bicyclists alike when we are driving on our roads to ensure that we don't change lives or end lives just by driving or walking. But yeah, a lot of effort going towards safety in terms of pedestrian and biking. Hard at work. This is a quick summary on pedestrian safety initiatives. We have somewhere around 288 miles of sidewalk in the county as we speak, 56 miles of shared use path, and we are hard at work adding more and more every day. We have 74 active pedestrian safety improvement projects at a cost of $570 million in the pipeline. So you'll see a lot of that coming up in the coming years. This is just a graphical representation of what the bike plan is in the county. As you can see, we intend to have a vast network of bike lanes from east to west, essentially, throughout the county. Let's see. So roadway lighting. One of our roadway lighting project was on Laburnum. We had some pedestrian incidents there, and we recently installed lighting. I wish I had a slide because I have a great before and after picture, and I don't have it in this presentation, but it makes quite a bit of difference to have lighting out on the road. Those were solar as well, so they were quickly installed, and they are quite effective with lighting and batteries. So yeah, give me a call or send me an email. I'll be happy to share the information on the amount of work that's being put towards lighting on our roadways. Let's close up with word on the street. So if you want to be in the loop on anything and everything that's going on with the county and public works and utilities, take a snapshot of that, sign up. You can specify what district you want to be in and get information and updates through email on word on the street. It's a great tool. I use it myself. I'm a resident of the county. So I'm seeing phones come out, so I'll give it a minute. Let me put my glasses back on. I believe that is pretty much my last slide, so with that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Let's start here and then we'll go over here.
Hi, I just wanted to confirm one of your slides. You said there will be a trail or a sidewalk on Messer Road?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that from New Market Road to Varina High School, from Darbytown Road to Varina High School?
Let me pull the graphic back up.
It's from Route 5, it's connecting the Capitol Trail, runs all the way up to the campus for the school.
I like pictures.
Okay, so it's not a sidewalk, it's a trail.
There it is. So
Yeah, it's a asphalt,
12-foot wide.
yeah, 12 foot wide asphalt. It's similar to what you see on the Capitol Trail.
Is it going, so it's going on the side where people's homes are, or the opposite side where the
Opposite side.
cornfield and
Opposite
the
side.
dental? Okay. And how much is that again for that?
Quite a bit of money. It's
Yeah,
in
'cause
two and a half. So the property, we're going to have to buy quite a bit of property to give it the proper buffer. There's going to be some utility relocations. There's going to be maybe some drainage work. So even though it's quite a short project, there is quite a bit of work involved to get that done.
And what's the significance of spending that much money for that? Like, how is that going to benefit us in Varina to spend that much money? And I'm just saying that because there's some other projects I know that have been lingering
Well,
that we've kind of been asking for, to spend that much.
the bike community and the school board member is well aware of this project. The school itself, Varina High School, has been pushing for the connector from the school to the Capitol Trail for kids to be able to ride their bikes, etc., back and forward safely from the school, so they won't have to be on the side of the road. So it connects the campus down to. Okay, can I finish real quick? Okay. All right, but I got to go to him first, and I'm gonna come back to you. All right. So, so the school community has been advocating for it, and some of the biking community has been advocating for it too. So, this is a project that we have been planning for. We had to work with VDOT, I think, Steve, a couple years ago, to get their approval, etc. And I'm not even sure if all of the money comes from us, but we can verify that. Yes, sir.
I got two. First one's really short. Memorial Drive South. How long? We can't find any information on how long that's going to be closed.
That may be a DPU project. I would have to confirm. I'm not familiar
They
if we
definitely
have.
got the road towards.
Yeah.
So I think, Mr. Manager, you checked into that. I think that's the piece that I asked you about. I think that what's happening on the side, we're doing. Yeah. So can we get your information? I'll share it. Yeah. So it's like we're running like drainage or something on the side of the road. Yeah. Yeah. So let me get your information. We'll follow up. Yes, sir. And what's your second question?
The second one is a little more serious. Williamsburg Road between Whiteside and Dry Bridge, between the park and the new Wawa and the condos, there's going to be some bad wrecks there. I don't know if y'all are monitoring that or not.
What are you seeing out there?
So, I don't know if you're familiar with where they put the yield lanes to cross Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Nobody comprehends how those work.
Yeah.
And then I've seen probably
Double
6 or 7 people just blow the light going past Wawa.
So I'll get with my traffic people and make sure that we address that. So you said Williamsburg Road.
It's Dry Bridge for the new Wawa, and then Whiteside, which is like a quarter mile, if that. It's going to be one of the most dangerous stretches in the county.
So what I'll do is I'll coordinate with our traffic division, make sure that they look at that and mitigate any potential risks that we have out there. Thank you for that.
We'll go back here, and then
All
I
right.
think I saw another hand over here. Mr. Manager, can you come on up so that we can transition into your presentation soon? Yes, sir.
Relating to this Messer Road Trail, in a previous meeting I mentioned I live off of Darbytown Road, and if you stop at the high school, why not carry it all the way down? Because you have residents that want to access that same bike trail. They have to ride down Darbytown Road, which is very dangerous. And we going that far, could we continue to encapsulate those neighborhoods down there? There's a couple of subdivisions down that way that would benefit from that.
Yeah, we hear you. We started at Varina, had to get that money to get this far, and so the next phase is to continue to move it. And we heard you when you shared it the last time. So going back up to Eagle's Nest, and really, if we took it all the way up to Darbytown, that's several $1 million more. So putting the money together is not as easy sometimes as it seems, but definitely trying to connect those neighborhoods up by Baker. There's several subdivisions up there, and so we definitely hear you. And I wasn't trying to be smug. I mean, I'm seriously.
No, I don't take it that way. I guess I'm not trying to be smug either, but I've been here for 30 years, and
it may take.
I don't know if I'll make 30 more. I like to see it.
Yeah, it'll happen before 30. I can't promise how soon though. Yes. Somebody else I thought I saw. Okay, here and then somebody down here on the floor. Yes.
So I guess in putting that, extending that Capitol Trail along Mesa Road, I guess we don't foresee getting a right turn lane into Mesa from New Market going north on New Market.
Yeah, I don't think we have any plan, and it's not an extension of the Capitol Trail. So it connects to the Capitol Trail, but not an extension of the Capitol Trail. So, and if he can get your information, and we can get you the specific answer. Yes, ma'am. And then here, and then I'm going to, unless it's somebody else really pressing, I want to move to the final piece.
Yeah, I go to a lot of street safe committee meetings and meetings in Richmond, and I just wanted to say it's disappointing to hear similar rhetoric from folks, especially after the passing of a human being. That is, the onus is on both pedestrians and drivers. A lot of our streets are deadly by design, and we can reduce traffic fatalities, traffic on pedestrian, traffic on cyclists with better design, and that is on the city, that is on the county. There are similarly laid out up in DC that have half as many fatalities, and we need to think more about design. I would hope maybe at other meetings you would go into the infrastructure and the design more than just handing out vests for folks to put that on them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
And we hear you, and if that came off haphazard, like we didn't care, that's not our intent here. We are intentional about design, and we do care about our citizens. I kind of grimace myself when we didn't take onus for ourselves as well. So we too are a part of the responsibility. So thank you. Yes.
So yeah, actually to kind of dovetail off that, I was actually going to say thank you for the attention to sidewalks. I've been a resident in Highland Springs for 17 years, and I would love more sidewalks. I don't go trick-or-treating with my kid in our neighborhood because it's too crazy out there and there are no sidewalks, so we can't do it safely. So thank you for expanding our sidewalks to begin with, and also a PSA for folks that might not know, because you did say that vests are available, but you didn't say where. So as far as I know, I think they are available at every public library. I'm not sure of any other locations, though, if you would like to share that.
So the public government centers also have them. So, and I think some schools may have leftover vests because we dropped them off there. But thank you for that. One more question. I thought I saw a hand over here somewhere. Mr. Welch.
I want to speak to the right-hand turn lane on Route 5. I think it's more an issue for school buses than anything else, because if we could get a right-hand turn lane for those school buses that are going to John Rolfe and Varina High School, that is a huge safety item for them, because the traffic on Route 5 is heavy, and getting those buses in a right-hand turn lane to get on Messer safely would be huge importance.
Duly noted. We're checking to that. I mean, that's really probably just right away purchase right there, and working with VDOT on expansion. So that's, thank you guys, whoever brought that up. Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir. Come on, y'all gave Zanino a loud applause, and I do want to recognize one of my colleagues who came all the way from Tuckahoe, the western part of the county, which is about 30 minutes away, to be here to support us, because we are doing the work together. And so thank you, Mr. Rogish, for being here with us. Last agenda item is the discussion of the fiscal year 26-27 budget that the Board of Supervisors just approved in April. So it really is the most important job that we do, which is allocating taxpayer dollars toward all of the things that make Henrico County what it is. And then once we finish that, we'll open the floor. So the first thing I'm gonna ask though is if there are any other, after Mr. Vitokas, the county manager shares his presentation, any other Varina residents who have questions that are non-data center related questions. All right, so, and I'm on Instagram too, so I know there was a concerted effort to get people here tonight to talk about data centers, which was really not one of the agenda items. And that's great, but I want to make sure that my Varina folk who are here get their questions answered, because this is a Varina District Town Hall meeting. And I want to make sure that if they have questions before we go to the Town Hall. Hopefully Channel 6, thank y'all for coming tonight. Y'all will report on something beyond just the data center conversation. I'm sure that probably won't happen, but I want to at least plug that out there. All right, come on, sir.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is John Vitokas. I've had the pleasure of working for Henrico County for 30 plus years. I'm in my 14th year. As the county manager, I want to thank all of the staff that are here. I know a number of them have been recognized. We also have our county attorney, who's also serving as chief of staff, Mr. Andrew Newby, that is here. We have our wonderful police officers, community officers that are here, and I know you guys jotted the gentleman's question about folks blowing through lights, and I'm sure that'll be reported up to the up through the chain of command. So let me take a minute, and Reverend Nelson noted that we just adopted the budget, but before I do, I want to introduce you all to a lady that has served our county with distinction, and all of the things that the administration does cannot be done without Joyce Cooper, who is my executive assistant, who has worked for Henrico County for over 30 years. Y'all give her a round of applause. She's absolutely remarkable. If you want to know who really runs Henrico County, it's Miss Cooper. So Mr. Nelson asked me to speak about the fiscal 27 budget, which is quite an undertaking, if you will. And I find myself in a moment of irony because I've spent a good portion of today actually working on next year's budget. The work is never ending, and it is absolutely the most important thing that any local government does. And as I was standing there, I was also perusing some headlines, national headlines, and talking about the Commonwealth of Virginia. You know, every locality in the Commonwealth has pretty much adopted their budget. Some smaller ones may still be going through the process, but the Commonwealth is going to continue to go into June, and who knows how long before they adopt a budget. So, and you all know the story of repeated federal government shutdowns and whatnot, where elected officials can't get together and agree on a spending plan. That is not the case in our county, and we take great pride in how we allocate your dollars. So let me tell you where the money comes from, and as I do, the overall budget of the county, the operating budget outside of capital, is about $1.4 billion. And that comes largely from three sources. Real estate tax revenues make up about 35%. That's all of the real estate, residential, all of the businesses that we have in the county, 35%. And speaking of real estate, Henrico's operating on a real estate tax rate of 83 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. When you compare that to the 10 largest municipal governments that we have in the Commonwealth and the overall tax burden that we have in our county, it is the lowest of that grouping. State and federal revenues make up about 35% of that revenue, and the lion's share of that comes for our school system and roads and social services. And then we have other local revenues, which is basically every other revenue, our personal property taxes, our sales taxes, our building permit fees, All of that constitutes about 31% of the resources that we have in Henrico County. Now, this past year, some of you may have seen this news, some of you may have not. But Henrico County was recognized as with a quad triple AAA bond rating. We were actually the second county, or the third county in the nation to reach that milestone, and there are 3,044 counties in the nation. Shortly after that, we issued water and sewer bonds, and we were the first county in the nation to receive the highest bond rating of any local government in the nation. In fact, our bond ratings are actually higher than those of the Commonwealth of Virginia and, sadly, the United States of America. So on the expenditure side, the budget is fairly straightforward, and it has been so for a number of years. The lion's share of our resources go to schools, and they also go to public safety. When you look at this particular budget, 83 cents out of every new dollar was allocated to those two areas. You can see a number of categories: administration, judicial, public works, public health, recreation, community development, and then a smattering of items included in the miscellaneous category. Now, outside of that $1.4 billion in the operating budget, your county also spends significant amounts of money on capital infrastructure. And this is infrastructure that ranges from public utilities, new schools, all of the road projects that Gilberto talked about in public works, new sidewalks, pedestrian safety. Thank you for recognizing that effort. It has been a very intentional effort as far as sidewalks, the number of roundabouts that have been put in recently. You're seeing crosswalks go up overnight, and the street lighting effort that Gilberto noted. We also have significant expenditures on the environmental front, where we are restoring creeks and streams, and that type of effort. We have every BMP in Henrico County, whether it's public or residential, covered in the budget for replacement or restoration. Public safety, you'll see a big expenditure. These are typically fire stations. We also have a new training center for public safety folks that will be on property that is currently owned by the raceway that we will be acquiring. General services refers to every building that we have in Henrico County, all of the HVAC. If it snows and we need to salt the sidewalks or take care of anything, painting, it's in this category. Recreation and the Sports and Entertainment Authority. This is a new effort that we have, the Sports and Entertainment Authority, where sports tourism we stumbled into a number of years ago, and it is providing significant dividends for our county. IT, those are all of our computer-related infrastructures. We have an employee home purchase assistance program that is funded in this effort, and then solid waste coming in. And then on this pie chart, you'll see all of the revenues that come forward. A lot of localities only have one revenue, and that is they basically issue bonds or debt. Our county is very fortunate in that we have a very resilient or robust capital program that relies on many funding sources. And for Randy Welch and some of the other folks that are very familiar with some of the things that we have done in the county, what Reverend Nelson has done in the Varina Magisterial District, this fund is also where we buy land for preservation, and we have preserved some of the most historic sites in America in the past several years with the acquisition of Varina Farm, 2,000 acres, the acquisition of the Wilton Farm property, another 1,200 acres, the acquisition or partial acquisition of the Malvern Hill property. You add it all up, it's countywide, we are up to 19,126 acres that will be preserved in perpetuity. So this may be a little bit of a nuance, but our schools are funded largely by local dollars, and then some state revenue comes in to that picture. The state revenue is based on a formula that was devised in the 1970s. It is an antiquated formula. It is horrible. It needs to change, but in a legislature that is looking, myopically at specific districts and localities, it's been very, very hard to change. Our formula actually was impacted significantly, and that was one of the big budget drivers this year, where an unanticipated decrease came about, and because of that decrease, that caused us to do some things in the budget to bring structure back into it, and we had, while our budget grew between 3% and 4% inclusive of schools, we also went in and made some reductions, if you will, across all agencies in order to get to that number. To put it into perspective, Henrico County is the 6th largest locality in the Commonwealth of Virginia on any given day. And we are, oftentimes we compare ourselves with Chesterfield and some other localities. Chesterfield County in this formula gained $33 million, and our allocation went down. So you look at all of the drivers that go into it. Again, this is a formula that needs to be changed, but we had to deal with some last-minute budget adjustments, and we did balance successfully with that. Our county on any given day is number 2 or 3 in the Commonwealth in the number of jobs that we have. If you look at this chart, in between 2024 and 2025, we had 3,531 jobs that came into Henrico, and jobs are the lifeblood of any local economy. All of our graduates are going to need to work. Folks that migrate into our community are going to need to work, and we have been very, very successful in the number of businesses that we attract, largely because of our approach to taxation, which is limited. We are very careful with how tax rates are set. Board of Supervisors has been very judicious in setting the absolute lowest tax rate in every category that we possibly can in order to continue to bring businesses in. But these 3 charts, or these 3 bars, are basically going to show you 3 revenues that have been impacted by our sports tourism efforts. And they are our hotel taxes, our local sales taxes, and our meals taxes. So folks are coming in on the weekends and spending a lot of money in Henrico County because of the amenities that have been provided for. You think about, how many of you have been to the Sports and Event Center? Okay, so we need to get more of you out there, but it is an absolute remarkable facility that is used both by our residents largely during the week and then by tournaments. In the weekend, we have Glover Park, we have Dory, that attracts significant investment, and all of that is paying dividends in that the tax burden for our local residents and businesses is reduced because of that fact. A number of cost drivers I won't get into too much, but the county, just like any organization, has to deal with fixed costs. And those fixed costs this past year, salary increases, healthcare increases, new facility costs that we have for all of the buildings that we're bringing online, so all of that had to be factored in. We were able to even, and I noted the budget did grow, but we did make reductions within the budget, within each agency in order to budget. We've done this a number of times over the years, and when you think about what's happening from a federal fiscal policy standpoint, think about the increased costs that we're seeing in gasoline or groceries or you name it. And part of that is some of the new approaches that have been taken with federal fiscal policy. So we're continuing these cost-cutting efforts. We have a committee of school employees and government employees called the Fiscal Wellness Committee, who is already bringing in budget savings across all agencies, and these are employee-driven groups that are basically meeting weekly and discussing how can we do more with less if the economy continues to not be so great, or cost increases continue for all organizations. So I noted, this is this year's budget, and I noted that we've already started talking about next year's budget. But one of the things that we do in Henrico is we are constantly in that mode. And this is a chart that I love to share with folks that think about efficiencies. Because in any large organization, if you don't have efficiencies, all you're going to do is spend more money and do less. And over time, then you are going to find yourself in a very difficult place. This chart looks at the number of employees per capita that we have between 2015 and 2025. And what it shows actually is that the number, this is per 1,000 residents, actually you'd have to go back to 1987 to find the same number. So you go back to 1987, I don't know how many years that is, but that's just a long-term indicator of just how efficient Henrico's spending levels are. On the revenue side, we like to be very conservative, and this shows our revenue variance as far as, when we budget $1, how much we exceed that budget by. This past year was 8.1%. Most governments try to get between 0 and 1%, which is an approach that you're not going to see come out of this administration. This is what gets you through the tough times. This is what people do at their kitchen tables. So just some other budget highlights. The budget did include a 3% pay increase. We are very careful in how we allocate health care costs for our employees, with the county picking up the lion's share of that. And we are never going to be shy about allocating overtime for our public safety folks. We don't argue about it. We try to be as efficient as we can. But when overtime is necessary, it's absolutely paid by the county. On the school side, a number of capital projects. We have the new Highland Springs Elementary School, funding for the planning of that. You'll see the construction dollars come in next year. We have $40 million for new Fairfield Middle School, which is not in the West End. That is in central Henrico. I've heard it referred to as a West End elementary school. That is absolutely false. $20 million in mechanical improvements, which are HVAC improvements largely for our school system. We have to replace buses. We have to replace technology in the classrooms. We have to replace things like playground equipment. And so all of that is factored in. And then within the area of public safety, I noted a new public safety training facility. We continue to enhance and improve for EMS. Do you know how much Henrico charges if you call 911? How much do we charge? 0. We are the only locality that does that, that provides full EMS, and I don't think you're going to see a board of supervisors come forward and charge our residents for that. You also have technology investments. You are also seeing our 2 jails are fairly old, so every year we have to continue to add dollars for those, and then we have to replace police cars and fire trucks, and that continues in this budget. This is a depiction of the training facility and a new fire station adjacent to Richmond Henrico Turnpike and Azalea Avenue. We have a new firehouse in the Varina District, Firehouse 6, that will be operational this fall. And then let me pause and say water crisis last year. So the water crisis taught us quite a few things. We tried a regional approach with our friends in the city of Richmond. Our Board of Supervisors actually went and met with City Council, and that effort was kind of rebuffed. And our Board of Supervisors actually Mr. Nelson asked me and the administration, make sure this never happens again. So what do we need to do to make sure that Eastern Henrico, which is fed by the city of Richmond, never experiences a water loss? And we are building what is in essence the largest utility project in the county's history. That is a $300 million new water line that will come from central Henrico and traverse into the Fairfield and Varina magisterial districts. It actually starts near the raceway, and that project is already underway. You are going to see most of it in easements. Think of Dominion power lines and that kind of thing, but there are going to be, as we get into it, some road disruptions because some of our utilities are going to have to be in roads. And so this is another $50 million that's being allocated to that. You will see multiple contractors working on this in multiple phases. And then the goal is that 4 years from now, that water transmission line will be operational. Mechanical maintenance, park maintenance, turf replacements, all of the turf fields that we have at the high schools, that we have at the parks are all being replaced annually as they need, and this is an annual allocation. And then drainage projects in a new park in the Kane Road area is being designed with this budget. We also have updates to our GIS technology. I noted the transportation projects, sidewalk expansion, streetlight initiatives, wetland bank and stream mitigation efforts. You know, the county actually is buying homes that are inundated by drainage issues in order to, some homes, you go back to the 60s and 50s, probably never should have been built in areas that they are. And the county is actually going in, buying those homes, knocking them down, and then basically restoring the property to a woodland type area. And then we consistently invest in energy efficiency improvements in all of our buildings. This is just a small allocation that continues an annual effort. But I wanted to close by saying some of you have heard about our affordable housing effort. The Board of Supervisors did something transformational 2 years ago when they allocated $60 million into an affordable housing trust fund. The single largest issue that we have as a county is affordable housing. When you think about the fact that 1 in 3 of our residents can actually afford a home in Henrico County, we presented the board with some information, and their response was, what are we going to do about it? And the reality is there aren't many localities that are really in this space. This is cash funding. This is not one project going to one apartment developer. This is cash funding where we have, we're attempting to influence the price of 150 homes a year for 5 years. Why 150? Because on any given year there are 800 homes, new homes that are built in our county. 150 is a significant number, and in fact, we are currently at 401 units, and what was a 5-year program is now going to be a 4-year program. We're targeting incomes between 60% and 120% of AMI. The county's not doing it. We are running all of these funds through the Partnership for Housing Affordability. It's a program that has been recognized by Senator Warner, who is trying to take it national. Time Magazine last month reported on this effort in that magazine. And there are 5 projects in the Varina district where you can see, like Parkside Homes, the 317,000, that is what that townhome is for sale for. And we have folks that are going through this program that are getting it at 198,000. We have 5 projects in Varina: York Manor, Landmark Condos, and Townhomes, Darbytown, River East, and Parkside Towns. So, I know that's a lot, but we can't talk about Henrico County's budget without getting into a lot. And as I noted, we are already working on the fiscal 28 budget. Mr. Nelson, you want me to turn it over, or you want to see if there are any questions on anything budget related?
Question for the budget. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Do you have a slide that breaks down the budget by district? And what I mean by that is I'm interested in knowing how much money, how much revenue did Varina bring in, and how much spending are you doing, or how much spending will happen in our county for the things that we need? So, for example, if Varina brought in $1 billion, but you're only using $200,000 for roads, and all of the rest of the revenue is used in other areas of Henrico County. So I'm just wondering if you had a slide that breaks that information down for us.
No, so the budget is not done by magisterial district because for many reasons. Roads don't conform to magisterial districts. Schools don't conform to magisterial districts. They feed from different patterns. But the board actually asked for that information. We have pulled information that shows how much is generated in each of the magisterial districts. And I can tell you that going back, if you look at the capital budget, going back to 2013, the district that we have spent the most capital in is the Varina Magisterial District, bar none. I mean, so Varina is 48% of the landmass in Henrico. So you can spend money in Elko that Sandston doesn't know about, Highland Springs that Elko doesn't know about. So, but I'd be more than happy to have that, have that conversation and share that capital list with you because it is indisputable as far as the capital spending in the county.
Is that something you can post publicly so we can get a better idea?
We can. Man, your sister has already asked me for it. I can get the information to her, and y'all can disseminate it however you want to. The information, the insinuation of we're not spending money in Varina is very interesting. So we can get the information. You can disseminate it however you want to. We don't have a slide that we can just post somewhere. The information is out there. We can send you an email with the information tomorrow. Yeah. Okay.
So on your slide, you mentioned $50 million for a water transmission line. Is that $50 million the total cost?
No, the total cost is.
Because you mentioned that this line will be finished in 4 years. So just want to validate that it's $50 million for this line, or it's going to cost more money for completion.
No, actually, the estimation is close to $300 million, and so it's a multi-year. This was just the fiscal year 26-27 budget recap. So it's $50 million this year to be $50 million each year until we get it done.
Is this the permanent solution for us to get fresh clean water? Because I read that this is temporary. So when you guys finish the line, that this is not what this will not bring Varina residents water. We still would be, some of us would still be on that Richmond contract in 4 years.
So, Ms. Manager, if you can explain, yeah.
So can you share with me where you read that? Because I literally, I hear things all the time. So what this is resiliency. And our region actually moves water all around. Richmond feeds us, we feed Goochland, we feed Hanover, Richmond feeds Hanover, Richmond feeds portions of Chesterfield, Chesterfield sends water south to those localities. But the intent of the pipe is to have an operational pipe. You can't build a pipe and not put any water in it because, environmental factors, water has to move. So the pipe will move. We will continue to accept water from the city of Richmond for a period of time, at which point the Board of Supervisors will reevaluate, we have a contractual obligation through the year 2040, I believe. But the water that you will be getting is clean water. The pipe will have water in it that moves from the west to the east. So, but I'd love to see that source. Okay. All right.
All right. Question in the back. Yes, sir.
Yes, I kind of like to piggyback off of her direction she's going. You mentioned Varina, and you mentioned certain sections of Varina. And unfortunately, I feel on this end of Varina is less attention. It feels that way. As a perfect example was what we talked about earlier, the sidewalk. And oftentimes I'm disturbed when I go to, say, CVS. And don't mean to be negative, but this is reality. I go to CVS and I look around the door, it's trash and dirt on the ground. And I realize maybe people throwing it down there, but I don't think that, can we require or ask these businesses to police around their localities on a regular basis, so it's not like that. And it seems like that tip, or this tip of this district, may be a little neglected in some ways, especially in that appearance.
It's a good question, and I guess what I will continue to say is we are playing catch up in certain regards. This was a rural community that is becoming suburban, staying suburban in some areas. Some areas is becoming urban, and so some of what was once required, needed, desired, and go ahead, because I don't want to do it going back and forth. So you go ahead, finish your statement.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I guess I'm just asking, is there any expectation of the businesses that in our area where we're spending money, is the county putting any expectation on them to maintain their appearance? Because it's shameful sometimes, and I realize the residents are responsible as well, but...
Right. So the answer is yes. I mean, the expectation for all of our businesses is to clean up behind themselves, residents to clean up behind themselves. I'm not sure it is the county's responsibility to go and police trash pickup at stores in our area. Now, I live here. I go to the 7-Eleven. I see you there. The same CVS's. I feel the same way. I'll go into a store, ask the manager. Listen, sometimes I just go in and give them the card and say, clean it up before I have to report it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Now, I'm not going to get into trashing my community. What I will say is this: as much as we put the responsibility of certain things are our responsibility, but putting trash in a trash can, I don't think that should fall on the responsibility of the county of Henrico. And so we have to accept responsibilities in certain regards for our communities. Now, sidewalks, we're working on it. We pretty much had to sidewalk the entire Varina district as it becomes more urban, etc. That's going to take time and a lot of money, and we're trying to do it on the main strips, and so it's going to take time. What we do is, as we build developments, when we build them, and then generally we make the developers put the sidewalk in. On the main arteries, we're doing it ourselves. But I get what you're saying, and I would encourage you, for those of you living in Varina, if you go to somewhere and it's trashy, say something about it, or stop spending your money there. And that's what I would encourage. Yeah, well, it's always a reflection on me, so it's all good. Yes, sir. Next. All right. Hearing no other questions. Thank you. Don't go too far. All right. Any Varina residents who have questions that are questions or comments that are non-data center development and they're in the Varina district? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
May in Virginia has been declared Historic Preservation Month. And today, several of us from the Route 5 Coalition met with the chiefs of 6 tribes and Preservation Virginia for an announcement, a press conference where Preservation Virginia named the site of Powhatan's birthplace, which is now known as Tree Hill Farm, as one of Virginia's most endangered places of 2026. And this site is I'm sure you all know it as you go down Route 5, it's a beautiful site of agriculture, history, and environmental beauty. And a private company has been, I'll read from this, reviving plans to develop the 430-acre property. And when this development was originally approved, which was back in, I think, 2007, maybe? Something like that. Virginia's tribes had not received federal recognition and had far more limited capacity to engage in state and local decision-making processes at that time. So this site now, the builder wants to put thousands of houses there, which would destroy the agriculture, certainly damage a lot of the historical significance and ecological significance, and add a lot of cars to your commute. The Henrico County seal shows a picture of Pocahontas with some ears of corn, and it says that the Indian corn on the seal represents the nurturing soil of Henrico and the gift of corn the Indians gave to the early settlers. So I would like to call on our county leaders. I know you all have been, you've done a whole lot so far, as Mr. Tolkas pointed out, in preservation, but I would like to call on you to work with these tribal leaders and Preservation Virginia and do whatever you can possibly do to preserve this historic site. And I think Aileen has some flyers that we were given at the press conference.
All right, anybody else? Now, just to be fair, no, I know, and I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm going to respond. And Ms. Godden, we know each other. To be fair, you left out that I have pulled together a couple of meetings with you and others as you have asked countless questions about the development of their property. And what we legally have shared is that property is owned by the Greco family. The Greco family, Henrico County does not own the land. The Greco family has put the property up for sale. The zoning on the property, which was zoned back in 2007 or 6, well, before I was on the board, went through an extensive public process. It was rezoned, and it was allowed to, I can't remember what the zone is because it's several classifications of zoning on the property. With our county attorney, and we can continue to look at it. Yeah, we can continue to look at, are there ways that we can, in essence, what you're asking us to do is stop development on that property. And I'm not sure whether or not the county can legally do that. And here's the, and this is not the popular thing to say, but it's easier to say, it's easy to say you can do it. But legally, if we don't own the property and somebody has the right to do something on it, the county cannot prohibit that just because we don't like it. And we can go buy it or whatever be the case. So I hear what you're saying. We continue to have these conversations about this, but to be fair, you and Aileen both know, to be fair, like, please, I don't want all of these folk here, some who don't even live here, to think that I am not being responsive to this conversation and that I am not set down with groups. And so I understand why you're doing what you're doing right now, which if I was you, I would do it too. If I had a room full of folk, I'd do the same thing. So I understand why, and you got the news here and everything, so I get it. I would do the same thing. So you do have flyers on the table. I don't, because at some point they're gonna kick us out of the library, so I'm trying to give the folk, yes. Mm-hmm.
And so you have been very good about talking with us. So yes, thank you. And we need to continue the conversation because there's more to come, and a lot of people don't know the treasure that we have here and that we're so proud of. So thank you, Supervisor Nelson, for our conversation. And please check it out because there's so much pride in this process.
All right. Anybody else before we open it up? Any Varina residents who have non-Tree Hill questions? Yes.
I'm a resident. I'm not aware of this situation, but the budget guy just said we buy property. The county buys property all the time. I mean, there's more stuff that happened in this county than Civil War.
Yeah. So we have Varina Farm, Wilton Farm. We justifiably can't go around and just buy all the property that people don't want. I mean, I'm being honest. We thousands and thousands of acres of land we purchased over the last 10 years or so. We continue to buy, to buy to conserve and preserve. And so we're continuing to meet with the groups. And so thanks for bringing that up. All right. Again, yes.
There we go. I'm curious, how do you all go about justifying what's a good development or what a good investment is? I know I hear you strongly advocating you're doing your best you can to bring a lot of money and development to Varina, but since living here, it also feels like Varina is a little bit different than the traditional definition of what good is. A lot of times good is just more people, more things to do, more infrastructure, more buildings. Varina seems to have a little bit different definition of what good is. I'm curious because I'm always torn with these discussions. I'm an architect, so obviously I benefit from a lot of development, but also I live in a rural place. And what I see a lot of times is the development that gets pushed in or zoned to allow to exist in Varina feels like the more inefficient ways to go about it. A lot of the single family home developments, it's a lot of cost for the county to incur over a long period of time. You get that influx of the tax revenue. That's great. We need it. But the cost of a lot of long-term and permanent, conversion of a, forested or conserved area to something that's always going to be developed, almost certainly. So I know that was a long-winded question, but it comes back to just how do you all approach, what's the value per acre of a, sorry, clicked the off button. Value per acre, for example, of a given development. How does that inform your decisions on what's worthwhile pursuing, or what's worthwhile even allowing in the zoning?
I will bring our planning director up, but I don't think it's possible to answer that question in a couple seconds, a couple minutes. So part of the comprehensive plan is to take your advice on what you think we should be doing, what would you like to see happen, and we continue to kind of take that into considerations as we move forward. Since I've been on the Board of Supervisors, I've approved one bigger development in 15 years, and so I have my own way that I look at what is what's important, and then the zoning classifications and categories. I will be honest, a lot of them, there are ways that we've been kind of looking at those particular areas probably for decades, and how we look at what we want to be aware, et cetera. But it changes, it adjusts, and we see some adjustments in recommendations even with this comp plan. So that was a longer question. I'm sure my answer probably was not suitable, but I don't really know how to answer that question. Also, I'll just leave that there. Okay, we can talk more. We can talk more. Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I was wondering if the county has a forester on staff, and it kind of ties into the other guy's question. So I live in Varina, over on the East End. This is where I come to the library. But when I drive around, I see a lot of property that is not big farms. I see a lot of property that's kind of scruffy looking, but it's fabulous wildlife habitat. And there's actually a lot of that property. And I have wondered if the county has someone that has looked, even if it's just from satellite maps, at all of the scruffy land. There's some water on it that makes it really not developable. There's trees on it. Nobody wants to knock the trees down. There's a lot of wildlife on it, and that wildlife is going to continue to need a place to be because of the big developments that are coming here. East, west, all of that land had been wildlife habitat, farms. It had been a little of a wasteland because of some of how the farming was done, but still there was a huge amount of wildlife there. And where is that going to go? And it's going to go where places where people don't want it, but I think there is room for it in Henrico County if we made use of the land that is not necessarily developable, but could be a contiguous amount of land for the wildlife that is special to Varina.
Well, the forester question, I'll let Mr.
Well, I've got two parts to that. So yes, my department, Recreation and Parks, does have a arborist on staff. So that's specifically looking at the trees. And then we just had a position close about 2 weeks ago for a land management specialist. And that position is dedicated to just the land that the county owns out here in Varina, looking at exactly what you're talking about, creating a wildlife management plan, natural resource management of the thousands of acres that we're the custodians of in the Varina district. So we do have those two positions doing exactly what you're talking about. One of them's on staff, one of them we are hiring right now. The arborist is from the area, to be determined on the land management specialist.
I am originally from up in the Shenandoah Valley, so I had a big learning curve when I moved down here and fell in love with the land and the animals in Varina.
One of the things that we are, the 2045 comprehensive plan has included a designation for, what's the name of it, Joe? It's called park. It's 5 acre minimum. And so a part of what we're trying to do is to make sure that we do keep a lot of Varina rural. And so actually more of Varina rural than will not be rural. So, but we'll continue to talk more about that. All right, every question at this point now is cutting into your data center conversations. Yes.
Okay. Do we have somebody that manages hazard zones, or that can we put together a map of the area of Henrico? Because let's start. We have the new concrete plant, right? So that's we just approved that. That's a big expansion. So that's messing up our air. Then we have the Virginia Sterilization Center, right? And
yeah,
that's
what new concrete? I'm sorry. What
down
new?
by Gillies Creek. Did we expand that?
Yeah, well, that's expanding, but that's
okay,
not.
but that pollutes our air. I mean, that's
right.
a health hazard for
Okay.
our area. Then we have Virginia Sterilization. That spews carcinogenics, and we've also rolled back all the regulations for that. And going forward, now we have these data farms, and we're going to have a death hum and light pollution, right? So we're getting it from every single angle. Oh, and the PFAS at the airport. We have the PFAS in the water at those homes. So, and the coal that we spilt in the water by New Kent. So do we have any map that has all these hazardous locations? Because I live in the middle, so I'm breathing it all. And I might even be drinking some of it.
So I don't know, Steve, is there like a DEQ map of that for the county? I guess you can come speak to that. I'm not sure whether or not we as a county have that map, but DEQ may be. Or the EPA, right?
Yeah, no, there's not. And I can touch on sterilization if you want. The Biden regulations increased the pollution controls on that facility. That facility did install those pollution controls. Now, the current administration in Washington has lessened those regulations. However, that facility had already put them in accordance with the Biden area rules. They've already updated their air permit in accordance with the Biden area rules. That permit is the operative document. That is what they're required to do. There's no new concrete plant. There's an asphalt plant proposed at Gillies Creek, which has been an industrial recycling plant that's been there for decades, at the bottom of Masonic Lane, between 60 and Anyway, it's past Gay Avenue headed north. That facility's been there for a long time. They've already were recycling asphalt, so they don't have that facility up and operating at this time. It was a use that was already allowed in their zoning, as we've discussed with other projects where they have an existing zoning. There was nothing really the county could do to say they couldn't put that there. And as far as the DEQ having a map, I'm not aware that they have any sort of map about any of these facilities, although most of them have some form of a permit from the DEQ.
But to answer your question, is that something that we should be looking at? Yes, I think that's something that we do need to look at. So thank you for your suggestion. So I'm going to open the floor now. I'm going to go here, but I'm going to go ahead and open the floor to data center conversation. So let's go here first, though. Yes,
what
sir.
are the developers going to put on where Roberto's restaurant they shut down and the developers supposed to be developing that area? What is going in there? Do you happen to know?
I think eventually it should be new hotels. So up and down that corridor, hopefully we're going to have new hotels up and down the corridor as we continue to move forward. So, yes. Yes.
Yes, hello. My name is Kevin Gallagher. I'm a Varina resident. First thing, of course, very grateful and proud Varina resident. I do feel like there is a narrative in the room coming from you, Mr. Nelson, that the discussion today about data centers is coming from outside of Varina, and I'm right here, and my family is a part of it. I would love to thank the people who are coming here from Chesterfield, from Richmond, from Hanover, who are concerned as well. And I would love to hear, can I just see who is from Varina who is concerned? So I think we can say that this is a Varina question, and this is a Varina group that is concerned about data centers. So.
Okay, my point was this was a meeting that data centers wasn't on the, and I get it. You guys said amongst yourself, we're gonna come and we're gonna put data centers on there. I get it. So what's your question?
So it's actually not a question. It's to say that the questions that the concerns that we have, they are responsive, and this may not be a meeting for it. And that, whether it's a zoning question that was resolved about Tree Hill 20 years ago, or a data center expansion that you all feel that question has been answered, we are engaged in an ongoing discussion, and that we want to keep that discussion open, and that the question is, are there steps that you are willing to take to move forward from this process to be responsive to a community response, and not one that is perceived as coming from outside of Varina, but from within Varina?
So I'm going to ask our county attorney to come up and just kind of talk through. So let me tell you what we've done. When I was first elected in 2017 or 16, at the time, our board decreased the tax for data center usage. And so at that point, it was to recruit. Now, did I know, and I'll be upfront, did I know the impacts that data centers will have on our communities, some of the larger impacts, because they also, if you're using phones and all that, there is some use. So hold on for a second. Hold on. So let's me and you just go ahead, since you're gonna cut across me and be rude. You know what? I'm not gonna do that. So, Mr. Gallagher, let me continue to finish. I too am from this community. So I am acknowledging that when we decrease the tax, I did not understand nor knew that we would be here 10 years later. So I would admit that. In 2024, in the tech park, where all of the data centers are, in the technology park, we don't have any hyperscale data centers outside of the technology park. Some of them, the majority of them, are by right. In 2024, our board did vote to rezone property where QTS is now to expand the expand the tech park for more data centers to go there. At the time, and I stand on my decision, we also too were struggling and are struggling with affordability for housing. I'm a black man, and when I ran for office, I was only the second one in Henrico County's history. Most of the people I know are struggling trying to find housing, rent, house, etc. And so $60 million to go into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which has helped a lot of people, was as important to me. And so I stand on that decision. If that's what's going to take me out of here as an elected official, then I own it. But back in 2016, when we first reduced it, I had no clue. I saw Facebook. I thought jobs, and there were construction jobs that came with them, a lot of them. And so that's why I made a decision then. Now, we have increased the tax from 40 to 260. It's not 310, which is the state average, but my colleagues and I are talking about that. In 2024, when we voted to do the rezoning, at that point, I decided I would not vote to rezone any other property for data centers. What's happening now is the build out of what was voted in 2024. And so when we said last year as a board that no new data centers would come forward, whether it's on rezoned or by right property, they had to go through a process. That's what we said, and that's where I am right now. If it's too late, then, I own that. But my thought was that it's in the tech park. The tech park was created for manufacturing, industrial, etc. And so when we start talking about Darbytown Road and other areas, then that's when we say we don't want data centers in communities, etc. And so that's why we put the provisional use permit. And I can pretty much say with assurance we won't approve any more data centers under the PUC. So I will say to all of you here that any vote that I have made, I own it. And I'm not even going to stand up here and try to share a resume about what I've done since I've been in office in Henrico County. Some of you who've been here, you do know that if this is what defines me, so be it. But we have done some good work here, and I until somebody runs against me and beats me, then I'm gonna keep on trying to do the best that I can to represent our area.
Thank you for that information. I also live in Varina on Osborne Turnpike. I am a veteran of biking that road every day, but a survivor. And I want to thank you for everything we heard today with the CAP Trail. I use these resources, and I also work in Richmond at Studio 2-3 and go back and forth every day. And as I heard with the water, our relationship to Richmond is very symbiotic. And so I thank everybody who came from Richmond today to be here. I have more pragmatic questions, which is yesterday, the state of Virginia declared that all data centers had to go onto backup generators because of the strain on the grid. So as we move forward to approving these 300 plus diesel generators, as we start moving toward a greater impact on our grid, 11 cooling towers, millions of square feet on this property, what are we going to do if we're already going on to backup generators and forcing them to emit, you know, these chemicals into the air? How are we going to live in this area? What's going to happen to our power bills? What's going to happen to the grid itself? So I'm just not understanding the sustainability and the feasibility. And the last thing I want to point out is that although it's not happening on Darbytown and we're putting it on 1,100 acres in the technology park, it's affecting all of Varina and all of our resources and the scarcity of it. So I want to understand the bigger impact if we keep piling them in on how today was once again the same heat as yesterday, as we're moving forward into this new era of unpredictability with our climate coming out of our bills this winter in Varina, which I imagine were crazy for all of you as they were for me. So I think moving forward, what are we going to do now that this has been approved? Plus diesel generators for backup.
All right, I'm going to let Mr. Yob try to answer that question. I'm certain that on a local level, some of that probably is a little bit above, but Mr. Yob's going to try to answer.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. You know, and I'm not sure what you're talking about with regard to them operating on generators other than as emergency backup. But as to the emergency backup, there is a new requirement that the DEQ has put in place. There's guidance on their website dated December of 2025 that effective this July, any new generators that are submitted to them for an air permit, every one of them has to have air permits, will have to meet the Tier 4 engine requirements. Now, Tier 4 has been something that environmental groups have been asking for a while. It is now a thing that they will have to meet. Tier 4 means it will have advanced catalytic air pollution control devices. It will have carbon reduction as far as emissions of particulate matter and other gases. So advanced pollution controls, that is a much higher level of pollution control than the former engines that they frequently used, which were Tier 2 engines. Tier 2 engines, by the way, are still legal, and EPA would permit them, but in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the DEQ has required that, again, effective July 1, any facility that comes for an air permit for an emergency generator at a data center will have to have a Tier 4 compliant engine. So.
How does this address the grid strain if we're already using this much power and they're saying, okay, if we move to backup generators, it's a sign that we might not have the power to give to these data centers?
Yeah, and you know, I really can't answer your question because I don't work for Dominion. Dominion is part of a regional consortium called the PJM Grid, and Dominion buys a lot of power from other states already. So I can't specifically address your question, ma'am. That would be something more appropriately handled by them. But well, that is their responsibility as a public electric utility, ma'am. So, I mean, that's all I can tell you. I don't work for them. I'm not here to represent them. So that's a very valid question. Thank you.
It is, and it's a good question. I want to make sure, I feel like I saw another hand before I saw yours, but did I see? Okay, yes, ma'am. And then I'll come back to you. I mean, yes.
Yeah. Hey, my name's Eric. I'm a Varina resident.
Hold on a second. Can you come back up here, please? Yes. All right, go ahead.
Like I said, my name's Eric. I'm a Verizon resident. I just live down the road. I have a small farm over there, so a big concern. So I have two questions. One big concern for me is water. Obviously, data centers, they drink water like nobody's business. They can, the entire city of Richmond could live off of 1 month of a data center water consumption, right? It's just gone. So my first question is about water. Where is it coming from? Obviously, we got that new pipe that's coming in, right? That's going to come down and give all the water. Is all that water going to go straight to the data centers? Hopefully not. because obviously I could see water being a big issue. And then my second part of the question is about the data centers themselves, this whole massive thing that's coming up, right? I know maybe it was passed beforehand. Is there time to stop it now, or it's already past that mark, it's rolling down the hill? So that's my two questions.
All right, so I'm gonna ask Mr. Newby to come up and talk about what that process looks like. Mr. Yob is gonna answer the water question, but I do want to be clear that the Board of Supervisors is not putting in a pump for resiliency and water in Henrico County, in eastern Henrico County, for data centers. And so I want to be clear. This is for our residents so that we won't ever again go through what we went through at the beginning of last year. Now, Mr. Yob, I'll let Mr. Yob answer that question.
Thank you. The top 100 customers in the county, of the top 100 customers in the county, about 50%, more than 50% actually, is apartment communities. About 35% is devoted to other governments. Roughly 5% in sectors goes to, actually it's less than 5%, goes to data centers, pharmaceutical businesses, food manufacturing, and, well, those are the big ones. So it's not as big as people make out. When the semiconductor plant was there, it used tremendously much more water. So we're using a fraction of the water that was used by the semiconductor facility that used to be at the QTS facility now. So again, it's less than 5% of our top 100 customers are in the data center sector. And again, it's roughly on par with companies that currently manufacture pharmaceuticals in Henrico County, manufacture food in Henrico County. So same level of water consumption.
Good evening. I'm Andrew Newby. I'm the Henrico County Attorney. I have the privilege of providing legal advice to the Board of Supervisors and the County Manager and the administration. I want to answer your question about why can't we stop the ones that we see happening in White Oak Tech Park now. And it relates to the Tree Hill question we had earlier. It's all a very similar answer. So the short answer is, for White Oak Tech Park, there is no stopping them now from a local government perspective. Outside of White Oak Tech Park, yes, absolutely, there is a way to stop them now, and that's what has occurred. So, as Mr. Nelson referenced, in 2025, the Board of Supervisors adopted a new zoning ordinance that requires all new data centers to get what's called a provisional use permit, which is a public process which requires going to the Board of Supervisors and getting specific permission to start a new data center. So that's where the pipeline was kind of shut off. And that was in response to, as many of you recall, the proposal for a data center on Darbytown Road. And it all comes down to vested rights. So to cut to the chase on the Darbytown Road case, we required a provisional use permit, they applied for it, and then withdrew it, and then said, well, actually, we have vested rights. And they asked Joe Emerson's office and me to opine that they do have vested rights. And we told them, absolutely, you do not have vested rights, and you cannot operate by right. They appealed that to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and my office had the privilege of defending the county and Mr. Emerson and saying they don't have vested rights, they can't build a data center. Fortunately, we won there, and they didn't appeal to circuit court. So that's an example of how the new law that the Board of Supervisors passed has prevented new data centers from emerging outside of White Oak Tech Park. Now, to White Oak Tech Park, most of those already had, under state law, what's called a significant affirmative governmental act. They had relied in good faith on that governmental act and invested significantly. In other words, they had either bought the property or begun construction or otherwise invested in doing the project. And under state law, which I can't control and the Board of Supervisors can't change, they become vested, which means basically everything in White Oak Tech Park is either built, in the process of being built, or someday will be built. And the local government really can't change that because of state law. So to put it in a really simple terms, I think we can all understand, like, do you own a home in Henrico? Like I do. And the question is, if the Board of Supervisors says, well, now you need a provisional use permit to own a home, to build a home on a residential lot, you'd say, well, you can't make me get one. I already have my home. And that's easy. Everyone understands why that's fair. That's a vested right. I have my home. I don't have to get your permit. If I own the land and I had a contract to construct a home on it and I already spent a bunch of money on it, law says same thing. I can't stop you. You don't have to get a provisional use permit. You're already vested. You can build your home. That's essentially where we are in White Oak. Either they have built it and they can continue to operate it, or they have invested money and they've already started building it and they can continue to operate it. They have vested rights. And to go back to Tree Hill earlier, is the exact same thing. They got their approvals in 2007. They're vested and they can build it. Can't go back in time now. Thank you.
All right, next. Let me go back in the back and then I'll come. Say that again. Yeah, no, the only way you can expand it is if we rezoned. So it would be up to us. So we would, I mean, you would definitely be able to hold us accountable. I'm gonna go back to the back. I mean, I know you've asked a couple, but I want to get some folk who have not had a chance. So I know here, we've not, I want to get some of the folk who have not had a chance to ask questions.
I want to give you a pat on the back. I don't have a question. I was at a meeting that you had organized, and the tech part had come up, the backup generators had come up. There was a woman from Sandston here. I think you even had the EPA come to that meeting. You worked hard with all of that. And she had a Facebook group that she had organized out of the Sandston area because she was so distressed about the pollution from the backup generators, not just air but noise pollution. And she came to you. I can't remember her name. Maybe you know.
Miss Klein, she was with us yesterday.
I think the young lady over here that brought that up would do great to meet up with her because she was looking to build her group in opposition, but had contacted you and worked with you to have a meeting this long ago last year. But anyway, that was a great meeting. So thank you for that. And
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And then I'm gonna come here next.
I'm learning. I don't know as much about these data centers as you do, but I have a question to ask. Part of the, I think from my limited understanding, part of the need of the data center is to store data based on all these devices that we're using. Is that true?
Some data centers, yeah, not
some
all
data.
of them, yeah.
So would it help the situation if there was some type of, because I know how difficult, some people walk around with thousands of emails or whatever, pictures in their data, right? Is it possible to require or ask these technology companies to make that a simple process or eliminate some of that data after a period of time so it won't require so much storage? Would that possibly help?
That's a good question. I'm to be honest, I'm not sure, but we can find out. Let's go here. Yes.
Hi, my name's Jen Skripek. I've lived in Varina for about 11 years now. I have a house off of Osborne. My sister lives off of Osborne. I moved down to Warwick where my husband lives, and we've been here for a long time. I love the fact that you guys are bringing affordability with the housing here. I had no idea that you were actually doing that until this meeting, so that's really good. I love that you guys are expanding the infrastructure and we're spending money for the good. But what I think our community wants you guys to do is put your foot down and not say, I'm really sorry that I made these decisions back in the day, and don't blame me and don't take on the responsibility from like past me decisions. Those decisions impact our water, they impact our health, they impact my child, they impact our neighbors, they impact our animals. This is a bigger decision than building a house, like your or somebody's analogy was. So I don't think we're here to listen to, is this going to go through or not? We want you to stop it. So my biggest question is like, why don't you? And what are you doing to try if you feel bad about it?
So so let me start on the backside. First of all, I am taking responsibility, so I'm not trying to pass it off to anybody else. Yeah, so if there was a way to stop it right now, I would. That our attorney is telling us that we can't stop it. So if you know a way or somebody else knows a way, so okay, well if you guys know ways that we can stop it, then okay, great. Tell us, okay? Legal ways that we can stop it. And so then I guess that's the answer. And so if you share it, we still got to take it past our legal department.
It seemed like he had some kind of idea over there. Like, I
Well, he smiles a lot, so he's just a happy. he's a happy guy. So, yeah. But I hear you. If there is some way legally that we can stop it. Now, I heard somebody holler out a name. Let me say this. This is one of the difficult things of being in this job. I hear people tell me all the time, you're an elected official, you signed up to be disrespected and all of that. And no, not you. No. I'm not even talking about you. I'm just saying, if we can have conversations that are respectful, I'll meet with anybody and talk to anybody. So if you know somebody who can help, then let us know. All right? Next. Yes, ma'am. Okay, come on back up, Mr. Lawyer.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Thank you. To follow up on the question that was just posed, what sort of systemic or governmental level changes can be made, and on what timeline, to make people coming here to make data centers less attractive? Is it taxation? Are there other options? And is this administration willing to do any of those?
That's a very interesting question. Yeah, you suggest one of the ones that's a pretty common regulatory tool, which is taxation. Certainly the Board of Supervisors sets the tax rate both on real estate and personal property. With real estate, it has to be one size fits all. If data center real estate rates go up, everyone's real estate rates go up. But for personal property, there is a data center rate, and as Mr. Nelson mentioned, we did increase, or the Board of Supervisors increased it a year ago to $2.60. So that is a tool in the tool bag. As far as actually doing something additional to stop the data centers that are being constructed, that is a matter of state law, so I don't think the local government has the power to do that, but the vested rights statute is a state law. It's Virginia Code 15.2.2307.
Yeah, we did it last year, and we'll do it again. Yes, yeah, yes.
Create a code for zoning, a code for data centers, even the ones that are being built now, legally, will that stop it? Because to me, it seems like it would. And this is something I brought up to the Planning Commission for the data center that was supposed to be built on Darbytown Road, but no one really addressed it.
Well, ma'am, good news, I hope, is that's actually what happened. So in 2025, the Board of Supervisors did enact a zoning ordinance that was specifically for data centers, and it was in response to that Fariva case, that Centric case.
If that was implemented and voted on, would that change the data centers that are about to be built?
I get your question completely. And the answer is no. The law doesn't allow us to apply it retroactively to ones that are already being developed. The state law that I mentioned a moment ago respects the rights of those who are kind of already there and doesn't let us change the rules on them once they're there. And that's what we're dealing with, is that state law that says, you know, everyone that was basically in the pipeline, I hate to use this word because it's imprecise, or grandfathered, and they get to play by the old rules. And the new data centers have to comply with the new rules, and the Board of Supervisors hasn't approved any new ones since that ordinance changed.
All right, who's next? Yes. Right here. The representative for that particular area, I think the senator is LaSharice Aird. I think the delegate is Dolores McQuinn. I think, yes.
Hi, my name is Cedar Zork. I wanted to wait till a lot of Varina residents had spoken, but I did also want to speak for why it feels really important to be here as somebody who doesn't live in Varina. I live in Richmond City, and I own a business in Henrico County, and I'm hopefully will move out here someday. But we belong to the same watershed, and when it rains and the water rolls down our hills, it enters the same James River that we drink water from, that I kayak in, I put my body in multiple times a week. And so I'm here because I really care about this ecosystem, and I really care about the health of our community, and I'm concerned as your neighbor, and I believe my health is intrinsically wrapped up in your health and the health of your community. And so I know there was some talk and tension around who's here and who's speaking, but I just want to represent the people that are that don't live here but really care about what is happening here.
Thank you. And the intention wasn't to say anything about people who, I represent Varina, so I want to make sure that this is a Varina Town Hall meeting. I want to make sure that Varina folk got the opportunity to speak. That's all I was trying to say. Thank you. Yes.
My name's Sean. I've lived in Varina for 25 years. I love it. And Reverend Nelson, I thank you for always listening to us and helping us out in everything that you do. I'm in the school system as well, so I'm here for my children, my family, and all the kids that I serve in the East End. And I'm just wondering, I definitely don't want this to happen. Love the poster, I love the support from everyone because it affects us all. But I'm just wondering, I know it sounds like it's going to happen. I want to know how to stop it as well. But is there any conversation that you all have had as county officials and folks that have been in this? Have you talked to anyone in Loudoun County? Because I grew up in that area, and it was just like this. Farming community with Dulles was just tinier than Richmond International. And now it is just Data Center Alley, I think is what they call it. And I'm just concerned because I know it sounds like regulations will be better, we can stop ones coming, but I know what's going on up there. Things are not being reported. It's all the things that you see on social media, and it's water pressure, energy, environmental. It doesn't even snow in certain areas. Is there any conversation that we can have with them to kind of figure out like what we're in for or what we could do? Because, that's my concern too. But I appreciate you listening to us.
So we have, and again, our intent is to make sure that we put as many restrictions, et cetera, on what's coming, not to expand beyond the territory of the tech park right now, beyond the 600 acres that we rezoned. And so the answer to your question is yes, to do whatever we can. We literally just had a meeting on yesterday, county manager and I. And so we're going to have an internal meeting. We're going to meet with QTS to ask for, push for even stronger things than they already are doing. And so the question is, the answer is yes. We will continue to try to push for as much that we can get as we can get out of where we are. I know you had your hand up, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you give him the mic real quick, Zanino? I apologize. Sir, I'm going to come to you after him. I apologize.
Right. My name is Dave Booth. I'm from Varina resident. And I'm just trying to wrap my arms around what's the worst case scenario that we're talking about that's already we can't do anything about. People can keep on building in the technological park, and then, I mean, it seems like once we figured out that lead gasoline wasn't good, we said, listen, you all could do business, but now you can't use lead gasoline. It would seem like there'd be some way, once we realize that the impact, the environmental impact, the health impact of these businesses, that we can say, we didn't realize the effects of the noise and all these things, and as a county, as a state, that's not allowed here. You have to go somewhere else. And people who have already been here, we're going to tax you a lot unless you retrofit things and get up to speed.
So all of those are good points. Let me go back to Loudoun County. This is not Loudoun County. I mean, Yeah, so what we have is we have 1,000 acres at the tech park. We have 600 that were rezoned. Of those, 200 and some are going to be developed. The rest of the land is basically not going to be developed. So that is your confine of, you want to call it Data Center Alley, you want to call it whatever, but there are no other data centers unless they go through a provisional use permit, which you have heard our board, 5 elected officials, say we've put a new parameter on where they are basically signaling it's not going to happen. So the other thing is that Loudoun County also made a monumental mistake on the fiscal side. And I've talked to those folks. They took all that money and put it in the budget. And guess what? They have spent it. Well, what this board has done is they're using data center revenue in a way that has never been used before in the Commonwealth or the nation. They are looking at targeting, and the first target was affordable housing. So if you keep that money out of the budget, raise the tax rate, do good things with it, knowing that your universe is very small. No comparison to Loudoun County. We are not going to make any list for data centers as part of a segment of the economy. As sexy as it sounds when people say it. The other regulatory environment, when it comes to the generators, these generators are kicked in to be tested, I believe, once a month. And I may be wrong about that, Mr. Yav, is it monthly? And so now you've got these new regulations. On the water usage, these data centers are using 20% of the water that our semiconductor facility was using. On the power usage, there is a statewide issue with power. There is no issue with power in White Oak Tech Park, none. So all of that infrastructure, basically we benefited from the technology that was there. And the reality is when you're on your phone, you're using these things. And, as far as limiting the number of photos or whatever you put on your phone, I mean, come on, folks, we couldn't even get cell phones out of schools, where teachers were saying, no, don't do that. I mean, so people have gotten used to the technology, and the reality is it's going to be here, but the reality is also this, that over time it's going to change. It is guaranteed to change because technology moves so fast. And so we don't know what these things are going to be 20 plus years from now. Our exposure as a county on the fiscal side is limited. So just know that. I certainly hope I answered your question as best I could. We are not Loudoun.
Kelvin Thomas, Varina resident, Osborne Turnpike, actually across from the Tree Hill property. Earlier it was mentioned that we brought up the tax rate on the data centers to what, 260?
Yes.
That's still 50 cents short of the state average. Why was the decision made to stop short of bringing us up to the state average? And are there plans to do so in the future?
So it was an eightfold increase, eightfold. So from 40 cents to 260. And I think you've already heard 2 of our 5 board members kind of shake their heads, yes, that, they would consider another increase.
Is that being talked about?
It would be next year. Yes, that would be the earliest.
It's being talked about amongst the board members. So 2 of us, it's 5 of us, 2 of us have all, you record us. 2 of us are already saying that there's something that we will push. All right. We got to get ready to wrap up soon. Pressing, I haven't heard from you. I'm just trying to get the people I haven't heard from. Yes.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, I work in cybersecurity and stuff. These data centers, especially these local ones, don't really have an impact on what you do on your phone. A lot of that infrastructure has already existed for 30 years. There's near infinite storage already. So when you're talking about somebody said reducing their photos on their phone or something, that's none of that. I mean, it's a noble to do, but even if the entire county stopped using phones, it wouldn't even contribute to 1-2% of a data center. Almost all of the data in these data centers is like Amazon AI shopping data, master like surveillance that like facial recognition technology runs through these, and these are like things that use data that use 20% of a data center's capacity. If you combined all of the like Richmond metro area's phone usage, oh, I thought there was someone yelling at me. Like,
Yeah, just go ahead so we can wrap.
yeah. So if you combined all of the Richmond Metro's phone usage, you wouldn't even use 1% of one of these data centers. I just thought I'd clarify that because that seemed to be a lot of confusion in the room. Yeah.
Thank you.
The people to be mad at, well, sometimes, but is like Amazon, Google, NVIDIA, big companies like that, and the EPA right now.
All right, thank you, sir. I saw you. Thank you for that. Yes, sir. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. This has been almost 3-hour community meeting. Thank you guys for coming out. We do have one more question, and we'll wrap it up.
Well, I'm not so sure it's a question or more of a comment. I've listened to a lot of people, been in Varina 20, 25 years. That's fantastic. I've been living on the same road for 70-some years. You ain't seen any changes like I seen. But I will say this. What, in very simple terms, is the 20-year plan, 20 to 45 plan? What does it do in simple terms?
It guides development or use of land use, and potential for what can happen on a particular piece of land.
Okay. No problem. I think that's good. Next question. How many of us as people don't come to the beginning of that at 20, but we come in after that and we complain because we're not there at the beginning?
That's a rhetorical question. I guess I can't answer, but we get the point. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you, staff, for being here and being supportive. Thank you, residents. Thank you, neighbors. We appreciate you. Go out and have a good night.